Hello, everybody. We're glad that you've tuned into our annual to-do series. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this afternoon. I'm Terrace Bricker, BrightSpot's marketing manager, and I'll be hosting our discussion on all things channel incentives. If you missed our webinar or haven't had a chance to read our blog on to-dos for meetings and incentive travel, we've got you covered. We'll drop those links in the chat, so be sure to check those out. If you have any questions during our session, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A tab. And towards the end, we'll take some time with our panelists to answer your questions. And we're excited to hear your thoughts on this year's channel incentive trends. So let's jump in and have our panelists introduce themselves to you. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Terrace, and hello to everybody. Thank you for sharing your time. I am Mike May. I'm president of BrightSpot, been in that role for 20 years. I also sat on the IRF, which stands for Incentive Research Foundation Board of Trustees for 8 years. And I mentioned that because this January, BrightSpot sponsored the IRF 2025 Trends Study. So several of their to-dos are pulled from that report, and we'll be covering them today. So we, as a company, we love being involved with IRF and being at the forefront of thought leadership across our industry.
And good afternoon. I'm Kelly Kunz, Director of Incentives here at BrightSpot. I've been here for 16 years and have spent most of that time working with channel clients. And following in Mike May's footsteps, I also serve on the Incentive Research Foundation Communication and Content Committee.
I'm Stephen Kearl. I'm a senior program manager. I've been at BrightSpot 3 years, and this makes me feel a little old, but I'm entering year 20 in the incentive recognition space, and I do have my IP certification.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panelists. All right, Mike is going to kick us off with our first to-do, move the middle.
Sure. Thank you, Terrace. This is a really common saying in the incentive space to talk about moving the middle, and it's because the middle is such a large group of people that if we move that middle, it accomplishes more than we can get out of the A performers. But you know, that's a little bit counterintuitive because I think most of us think if we just get a little more from the A performers, and a little more from the A performers, that's going to lead to more revenue. But it's the A performers are that because they're already achieving at a high level. They probably will continue to do so, but the numerous studies have shown if you can move that middle 60%, just a small percent, that it will result in more revenue than squeezing a little bit more out of the top 20. So what we're seeing in trends is a lot of tiered structures, ones that allow people in the middle to level up to a higher level. Maybe they achieve some sort of elite status that earns them a badge or a recognition or a multiplier on their award, or just even some type of recognition for those that are accomplishing more in the middle. So our to-do this year would be to add extra rewards for exceeding past year's performance.
Thanks, Mike. Kelly, can you tell us about the trend Enlist the New?
Absolutely. So by enlist the new, we mean recruit and engage new sellers, especially with Generation Z in the workforce. And fun fact, Generation Beta being born just on January 1st of this year. The workforce is much younger, and chances are they won't know about an existing program unless they are engaged. How do we recommend doing that? Well, with an enrollment incentive, for example. Let's say you enroll and earn X number of bonus points, or you enroll and your first sale has a multiplier on it. But really, it's about explaining what the WIFM is to these newer users, newer participants, so that they are quick to engage and adopt the program to help drive incremental sales. And need to do add an enrollment incentive for Q1 and Q2, but then we'd also recommend looking for avenues to promote the program to new sellers, for example, at your SKO.
Nice. Thank you, Kelly. Stephen, tell us why enablement is still crucial.
Yeah, as Kelly mentioned, you've got a lot of new people in the sales force, so it's really important that you train them on the products and services they're selling. And also in the channel space in general, turnover tends to be higher than in other roles. In fact, HubSpot had a recent study that showed the average tenure for a channel sales rep is only 18 months. So if you think about that, every 2 years at least, they're starting in a new role. So you want to make sure that you're training them. We think it's very important to not only focus on the end goal, which is obviously selling the product or service, but focusing on those pre-sale activities. So giving them either webinars, in-person training, or what we love is micro learning, which are short 10 to 15-minute courses that cover a topic quickly and concisely. And then a little bit outside of enablement is also like deal registration. So there's other things before the sale that you can focus on that help get that end goal of completing the sale. And what we recommend is that to do for this is to invest 10% of your incentives in enablement.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Mike, I'm interested in what you mean by inflation decreases incentives. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Terrace, have you seen the price of eggs lately?
Yes, I
Huh?
have.
You've been to the grocery store?
Yes.
On a serious note, I mean, I'm sure we've all walked in and we've checked out and they bag up the groceries at the end and there's 2 sacks and then they say that'll be $100. And you look at the 2 sacks, you're like, how in the world those 2 sacks have $100 worth of stuff in them? Well, incentives are being affected likewise. So on the right side, you see the consumer price index inflation over the last 5 years. While those add up to 20%, they compound to about 25%. So a fixed dollar incentive is worth less now than it was 3 or 4 years ago. $100 4 years ago, it's probably only worth 75 today. So our to-do is an obvious one, to increase your offers by 25%. And it is logical, but we see so many companies that just keep doing, it's the same thing. It's 100% or it's 100%, $100 or $500 or $5 per unit. This is the time to rethink that and look, should you increase that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Mike. Stephen, I know application programming interface is important to you. Tell us how it relates to user experience.
Yes, I know there's a lot of letters on the screen right now, but let's start with the first one, API. To simplify that, think of that as just a way for 2 websites to exchange data with each other, pass data back and forth. This is really helpful if you have any sort of platform like Salesforce.com, where you're containing all of your sales data. That would allow you to pass verifications to your incentive software that BrightSpot would manage and verify data in real time. It's really helpful if you have a Salesforce that's looking to get paid on a daily basis. We can automate things that way. And then also, speaking of that Salesforce, most people in the channel space have some sort of marketing portal they log into that has training documents, marketing materials, specs, and things like that. If you have a portal like that, any kind of partner portal, we highly recommend doing single sign-on or SSO with your incentive platform, because what that does is it's one spot for your partner to log into for everything. And then our incentive would be a link on that partner portal. So they don't have multiple usernames and passwords to remember. Everyone gets tired of 2-factor authentication and getting a text message every time you want to log into a website. So if you have the budget in there to link to your partner portal, we highly recommend doing single sign-on with your incentive platform. And really the to-do for that is just to focus on your target audience and ease their journey to make it as simple as possible.
Absolutely, I can agree with that. Kelly, what does it mean to do a deep dive into data?
That one does feel self-explanatory, but it does mean just that, to harness all the data that you have at your fingertips. At BrightSpot, we're fortunate to serve multiple verticals, and the data and insight within each vertical can be dramatically different. So by really peeling back the onion, going into a deep dive and looking for insights, but not just insights, really turning a report into analytics and insights into actions, and then actions into improvements. One of our processes here at BrightSpot is what we call a program review, where every 6 months we do just that, deep dive into the data to look for insights for our clients, to be able to tell them which products are performing well, which ones should be spiffed at a higher rate, which regions are engaged, which regions aren't engaged. But it really, the action here in the to-do is to deep dive on data, to mine for insight, analytics, and continuous improvement.
Yeah, love that. Speaking of data and making sense of it all, Stephen, can you tell us about the trend for visual data?
Yeah, like Kelly said, we really believe in doing that deep dive into the data to analyze it, come up with key points. But if you can't summarize that data in a clean way that the key stakeholders understand, then really you haven't really done much. So we've really started working on visual reporting. There's a lot of nice tools out there now. And actually going back to the API discussion, these tools will tie into Salesforce and other portals so you can pass data in real time. So if you can combine APIs and visual reporting, then you've really got something going. But we use a tool called Microsoft Power BI, and there's other tools out there that are similar like Tableau and Google Dashboards. But what these tools do is they let you bring in multiple sources of data. It could be as simple as just having 6 or 7 different Excel sheets, but you bring that all into one clean dashboard and display it in a way that's easy to understand. So what's nice about the dashboard you see on here is you've got data pulling from 4 or 5 different sources, but then you have filters at the top. So you can have one dashboard that could be shown across the entire company. So think about going to visit a branch manager. You could filter this. Let's say that the branch manager wants to see Q1 results just for his or her branch. You could have this dashboard ready and just filter for that location. Then moving up to the region, do the same thing. And then obviously the national sales manager would see everything. So you have one clean dashboard that everyone is used to the same format on, but it's flexible so you can tweak it to that audience. And we just really like having those visuals because the numbers are easy to understand and all the charts are specific to that program. So the to-do on this is to summarize big data with insightful visuals.
Now, Stephen, one thing I didn't say, but your side also, this is also a really good insight here, is the ability to report at an executive level. So often we'll take a screenshot of our backend dashboard and say, here you go, here's what you need for your meeting, so you're prepared. Same thing applies here when it comes to visual reporting. Just a quick snapshot for executives at this level is also incredibly helpful.
Hey, while we're pausing here on visual reporting and deep dive data, there are some channels that the sponsoring company has visibility all the way through the intermediaries to the end rep that sells their product, such as if it's serialized software that has a serial number. They'll be reporting back to the sponsoring company, or if it's an insurance contract, they'll know what rep out in the field sold it. But there's a lot of physical products that move through channels and they move through intermediate distributors. And then the sponsoring company kind of loses visibility beyond the distributor level. They don't really know who the ultimate customer is, what reseller is moving that product through distribution. So many times channel incentives can provide sales intelligence to the sponsoring company that they don't have. And therefore, diving deep into these claim data, sales data, could really provide a sponsoring company or a manufacturer a great deal of insight about what's actually happening out there on Main Street where the reps are selling product.
Yeah, absolutely. All great insights. Mike, what is the trend on second tier rewards?
Yeah, so the right side of this slide with the highest bar in the airplane represents people that win the P Club trip or the President's Club incentive travel trip or Circle of Excellence, whatever a company may call it for their direct sellers or for their channel resellers. But typically a President's Club incentive trip might only allow the top 10 or 20% of the sales force to win and achieve that. So they're the elite achievers. They're the first tier achievers. As an example, we had a software client that told us we have 4,000 sellers. Our club trip has 400 winners, and that's as large as we can get. We just don't want it to get any larger. But what that means is only 10% of our sales force wins the trip. And we want to do something for the next 20% that have really performed at a high level, but just didn't achieve the first tier status of club. So a lot of companies now are adding second tier incentives, which becomes a form of moving the middle that we talked about a few minutes ago. There's some research from IRF that we've mentioned a few times today called What Top Performing Companies Do Differently with Incentives. And what was fascinating to me in that study is it said higher ROI can be achieved by widening reach over exclusivity. So what those terms mean is exclusivity is the few people at the top that may achieve the exclusive trip or award. Reach would represent the larger group of B performers who may feel discouraged. And if you add some sort of second tier recognition, whether that's a merchandise prize or a high-end gift card like Kelly wanting Tiffany's or Stephen getting a whole bunch of Chipotle cards.
Yeah.
But seriously, if you widen the reach, let more people achieve at that second tier, those consolation prizes become powerful motivators, and maybe not motivators. I think it'd be better to say they're recognition. The recognition that you had a good year. We appreciate you had a good year, and we want to congratulate you. And so our to-do would be widen reach within your organization with second tier prizes.
Love that. Thank you, Mike. Kelly, what is the trend on referral incentives?
So, well, speaking of widening reach in a different way, at Bright Spot and in the industry in general, we're seeing an uptick in referral incentive programs, especially as so many companies move away from top opportunity or enterprise level deal recognition and more to a recurring revenue subscription type model. Referral incentives can be a powerful way to augment those smaller sales that they just may not be getting any longer due to that change in revenue recognition. Some of the referral incentives that we see here are in the B2B space, but also in the consumer space. And what's really interesting is when you can tailor the offers or tweak the offers to see what works best. Because what we know about referrals is that marketing is the strongest form of, or word of mouth is the strongest form of marketing. And also you'll refer and buy from someone you trust. So if someone tells you that it's a good company, it's a good deal, it's a good program, you're more likely to take their word for it and give them your business based on that referral. So the to-do here, use referrals to find ways for new lead generation.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. All right, Mike is going to wrap up our webinar with a recap of our top to-dos for 2025 and discuss some additional to-dos that didn't make it on our webinar, but are just as important. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Terrace. And I know here in a second, we're going to have Q&A, and I've seen in the participants that we have several of our very smart customers and some people that I know are smart prospects. So I hope we get some really good or hard questions, or maybe even questions that suggest a trend or to-do that we didn't cover today. But the ones we did, we said move the middle by rewarding incremental performance. Kelly talked about enlisting the new. After so much turnover in channel and direct sales the last 2 years, we think it's so important to do an enrollment incentive in the channel space. Stephen told us that enablement is crucial and suggested investing 10% in enablement. Inflation is decreasing incentives, so we need to bump up the offers. APIs are so important now to integrate all the tech stack together and ease the audience journey or their UX, user experience. We paused a little bit there for a moment with some good dialogue on deep dive on data and visual reporting that leads to actionable insights for senior management. Second tier awards to widen reach beyond the club trip, and then referral incentives as a source to find new lead generation. And Terrace, as you said, we had 4 other trends and to-dos that we left on the editing cutting floor here just to keep our presentation concise today. But we think it's very important to enhance communications. We feel like communications have been neglected the last 3 or 4 years. Personalization, both personalization of content, personalization of awards. Rethink your award preferences. As Kelly told us, the channel keeps getting younger. And also as it grows more geographically diverse, it can reevaluate your award preferences. And then continue to explore AI. I saw a North Star study that said only 13% of people said they felt like they've made substantial progress with AI. So many of us, we've dipped our toe in the water with AI, and we believe it's now time to move up to knee deep or waist deep in 2025.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much, panelists, for presenting all of those wonderful to-dos. As a reminder, we'll answer any participant questions, so please take the time to enter those now if you haven't already done so. And I'm curious, before everybody hopped on here, I was asking our panelists which gift cards they would rather receive, excluding Amazon. So I'm curious to what you have to say about that. If you want to participate, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the chat. And so while we wait for those questions and comments to come in, I want to point out that you can find more about this topic and others with some helpful resources, such as our channel partner rewards guide and our blog 2025 to-dos for channel incentives, sales contests, and employee rewards. Those links will be provided to you in the chat so you don't miss out on those. All right, so let's see what came in here. All right, we'll go over our questions first. Ooh, this is a good one. For enablement, what is a good length and reward?
So obviously that kind of depends on the audience, but we're actually big fans of micro learning. It seems like things are moving faster and faster and people's attention spans are shrinking. So we recommend micro learnings, which are anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Obviously you can't expect a company to pay $50 for that because that would just won't make any sense. And you also couldn't expect a rep to do an 8-hour training for $50. So we recommend a 10 to 15-minute training and pay somewhere from $3 to $7 in points, because that way they can complete multiple smaller trainings and learn what they would have during the certification course.
Oh, awesome. That was a great response. Thank you.
You know, Stephen, a lot of the incentives we do in the technology space can be very high dollar incentives. But on the other extreme, we have some clients that are in retail applications. I think of some that sell kitchen and bath fixtures that because the products are so diverse and so complex, I feel like they may do a greater percent of awards in enablement because they're just trying to get people familiar with their products. Or we work with a quick service restaurant where they're always talking about things with the ingredients, food safety, how menu items are made, how to do customer service. Well, in a retail environment like that, you can't necessarily do a $10 or $25 card every time somebody does a micro learning. But we've done some cool things with spin and win games that give people a chance to complete their micro learning and then spin and win. And, it's a fun way to create some interactivity and allow a few people to win, but do something a little bit fun.
Yeah, love that. Thank you, Mike. Next question, and I think this is all we're gonna have time for. What is the cost of a Salesforce API?
Ooh, I'll take that one. The shortest answer is it depends, but to answer the question, to do service to our audience, we ballpark that anywhere in the range of $500 to $5,000 when it comes to setup of that API with our other endpoints. What we see is much of that investment or lift, if you will come post integration, post setup in the testing, QA, and troubleshooting when it comes to those endpoints. So 5K is a good ballpark, just for the sake of the answer.
Do you think it's important because everyone always wants integration, but you got to consider the cost and really the benefit. A lot of our clients really don't need integration necessarily. If you can handle it with a monthly file or a weekly file, that might be a better option. So think about if you need to see a remorse when you think about paying for integration.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for hopping on. Thank you, panelists, for all of your great insights. I hope everyone has a good day and joins us for our next webinar.
Happy selling, happy marketing.